We were sitting in a diner, this diner, in Washington Heights, New York City, in July of 2016. Inhumanity was all around us. You remember, the run-up to the election was ugly. People were being mean, vicious, awful to each other. The divisiveness and the hate were unbearable. We felt like the country had lost something, had become sick with a terrible disease. And unbeknownst to us, both of our lives were about to change forever.
Rachel had just seen a performance of a play I directed called Ubinadamu, which is Swahili for humanity.
The play was so touching, so naturally I was crying into my eggs.
But let's be honest, it doesn't take a lot to make Rachel cry. So.
That's true, especially when it comes to great theater. See, we're both theater artists, and we have our own nonprofit theater company, the Outer Loop Theater Experience. But before we return to the diner scene, let's back up a little and tell you how we got there.
So I had just returned from my first trip to Tanzania, where I was invited as a director to travel with a group of actors, and our goal was to visit communities and villages, listening to people's concerns, their needs, and looking for a story that we could tell through theater to help give a voice to the voiceless. So on this journey, we found ourselves in the small remote village of Mloka, a village of about 4,000 people. Now, when I say remote, I mean no paved roads, no electricity, no water source, no hospital, and an 8-hour drive from the nearest city. Remote. So our group was invited to a village council meeting where we were encouraged to listen as the community identified their biggest challenges. And we sat and we listened as one by one men stood up and said, "We need a well, we need a school, we need to eliminate poaching." Finally, near the end of the meeting, a woman stood up and said simply, "We desperately need a maternity clinic." I can't explain it, but I felt an instant connection to this woman. I felt that she had a story to tell, that there was something deeper behind that one sentence. So I asked our guides to see if they could find her, and by the next morning, word had reached her farm that one of the visiting artists wanted to meet her, so she invited us to her home to talk, and this is when I learned her name, Asha, and her story.
Michael sitting and listening to Asha's story would turn out to be the first act of unity on this journey that would set off a chain reaction of people coming together to listen to each other and help one another that would ultimately impact the lives of over 6,000 people.
So I asked Asha why she stood up in that meeting, and over the next 2 hours, she told me why it was so important to her that the village get a maternity clinic.
8 years before Michael met her, Asha was pregnant. She went into labor late one night, and a midwife helped her deliver at home. The child, a girl, was born perfectly healthy. But suddenly, it became clear that another child was coming. As it turned out, Asha was pregnant with twins, and no one, not even Asha, knew it. Remember, no hospital, no prenatal care. The second child was coming fast, and there were major complications. The midwife told Asha that she couldn't help, and that Asha needed to get herself to the nearest clinic, a 4-hour drive away. This meant that Asha's family first had to find a driver, then had to come up with the money to pay for a driver, then, in the middle of the night on unpaved, bumpy roads, in pain and rapidly losing blood, she finally arrived at the clinic, only to wait in a long line. When she was finally seen by a doctor, the doctor told her that this clinic was not set up for this type of care and that she needed to get herself to the larger hospital, another 4-hour drive away in the city. Back in the car, still in pain and rapidly losing blood, she finally arrived at a hospital over 10 hours after the first child was born. It was too late. She lost the baby and nearly lost her own life. And this is why she stood up in that meeting.
And as we sat there listening to the story, our translator had to take breaks to cry. And we realized listening, we didn't need the translation to understand the depth of Asha's pain. So we sat there together in silence on the dirt floor, trying to absorb the magnitude of what she had just shared with us.
Back to the diner in Washington Heights after the performance of Michael's play, which was based on Asha's story.
So I was telling Rachel the true story behind the piece, and I told her how Asha had said to me that the reason the village really needed a maternity clinic was not for her. She didn't plan to have any more children. It was for the women and children who will come after her and continue to die because Mloka is so far away from any health services. I told Rachel that I couldn't stop thinking that we just had to do more. I felt it in my soul. And that's when Rachel said,
I totally agree. Actually, you know what would be a crazy idea? If we got married and instead of having a big wedding where everybody spends money on travel and hotel and gives us gifts, we have a small, simple ceremony and we ask everybody instead to donate to building a maternity clinic in Mloka. And that's when Michael said,
"Did you just ask me to marry you?"
Oh, yeah, I think I did.
Yeah, let's do it.
And so we did. We spent the next week quietly creating a video announcement and a crowdfunding campaign through our theater company. Then, without letting anyone know, including our families, we released it online. You can imagine, right? Within minutes, the phone calls start coming in, my mother first. Wait, what? This is amazing. I can't believe it. And so on.
Yeah, we spent a month planning a very small wedding, close family only.
My mother said she spent more time planning my 4th birthday party than she spent planning my wedding.
So through our union, we were not only able to reach our fundraising goal, but we doubled it. And then another 30 days later, we left for Tanzania on our honeymoon to help build the maternity clinic.
A car ride, 2 flights, and 37 hours later, and we were in Dar es Salaam, the industrial capital city. Then another 8-hour drive, the same drive Asha took in labor that night, and we were in the village of Mloka, ready to begin. We stayed in the village for 3 months, and over those 3 months, there were many physical, mental, financial, and logistical challenges.
Many.
First of all, it was the summer in Tanzania, which is on the equator. So imagine the hottest that you've ever felt, and then multiply that by 1,000. And remember, no air conditioning, no cold water, so no relief, ever. Also, this was our home, and sometimes this would happen. We would wake up in the morning in pools of our own sweat, and even when we could shower, we were sweating by the time that we finished. And there were bugs. Lots of bugs. Big, scary bugs. So that was hard. Really hard.
And one of our biggest mental challenges were the adjustments we had to make to our daily lives, to everything. So no electricity, so good luck charging your phone. And when you could charge your phone, good luck getting a signal. We had no choices when it came to meals. We ate whatever was put in front of us, whenever it was put in front of us. So no ability to stay on a regular bathroom schedule, if you know what I mean. This is how we did our laundry. So, you know that routine you have every day doesn't exist. And you have to adapt. You just have to.
And those were just the challenges of being there. Then there were the financial and logistical challenges of actually building a hospital in another country without any experience at all. Remember, we are theater artists and teachers. We are not construction workers, we are not engineers, and we're not doctors. So how will this work? What will we do? I'd like to think that fate intervened because, as it turned out, Asha's husband Patrick speaks English and is an engineer, so that was quite helpful. He served as our project manager and contractor, arranging teams of workers, deliveries of supplies, and meetings with local and national government officials. If not for Patrick's help, there would have been no way to do it. We helped with construction when we could, but this clinic was built by hand. And when I say by hand, I mean mixing cement with a shovel, carrying blocks one at a time, moving bags of sand one by one to level the floor.
There were no power tools. Do you understand what that means? When's the last time any of you used a handsaw? And there was no water source at this clinic. So in order to mix cement, you need water, right? So guys would take motorcycles down to the river, fill containers with water, and bring them back to mix cement. And despite this seemingly impossible task, the clinic was starting to take shape.
And then we ran out of money. The clinic was so close to being complete, maybe 2 to 3 weeks away, and we ran out of the money that we'd raised. The project was running into unexpected expenses, and we were stuck. What should we do?
So we talked about it at length, and we decided to launch a follow-up fundraiser from the village on social media, which was fun given the limited access to internet. And this time we created a short video with Patrick in it, and we posted it. And it was miraculous. In 3 days, we raised enough money to finish the clinic. It was amazing to witness this unity, the shared humanity between, the two communities, our friends and family in the US and our new family in Mloka, all so far away from each other and so seemingly different, just coming together for a common purpose. No woman should have to go through what Asha went through. And this gave us hope, and it helped us make it to the end. Financially, but also mentally. The clinic was finished and our work in Mloka was done. For now.
Yeah, we really thought that was the end. We set out to complete a project, and we did. What we didn't realize was this was in fact not the end, it was just the beginning. Seeing what we'd accomplished, the local and national governments reached out to us and offered to partner with us to continue our work, the work we were now calling the Humanity Project. Because we had helped build the labor clinic, the national government was now offering to reallocate funds, a lot of funds, as well as manpower and materials to help build an entire medical center around the labor clinic site. So now the village of Mloka and the entire region would have access to a full-service medical center with services for everyone. And they wanted us to come back and work together on it.
So about a year after that first trip to Tanzania, we found ourselves once again raising money to return and help with the construction of the full health center in the village. And once again, the strength and the power and the connection, the bond between the two communities, our fundraising community in the US and this small village 8,000 miles away, it showed us that this work was destined to continue because we reached our fundraising goal again and we returned to Tanzania.
And we arrived just in time for opening day of the labor clinic. It was incredible. The national government sent medicines, doctors, everything. And on the morning of that opening day, over 500 mothers and their babies showed up, as well as many pregnant women, men who were sick, and people from surrounding villages to witness this historic day. And one of the coolest moments was watching Asha run the entire thing from start to finish, from clearing the property around the clinic to welcoming all of the mothers to helping weigh the babies and distribute vitamins, everything. She was so happy and so proud. Remember, it all started with her.
Mm-hmm. It was an incredible day. And then right away, plans for the remainder of the health center began. 6 more buildings, a dispensary, operating rooms, recovery wards, laundry, laboratory. We met with the district medical officials and they laid out their timeline and their plan. And they asked us to please continue partnering with them, for if not what we had started, none of this would be happening. So we got back to the US, we shared the news with our donors, and then we started to plan the next steps, which meant that about 2 months later, I would return by myself to help with the medical center construction, but to also talk about some future project possibilities. So I began a discussion with the district team about how all of this started with a play, with theater, right? The arts. This led to a larger conversation about a project for an arts and cultural center in the village, a centralized location for artists to come together, a space for the artists and students from the village schools to come together and create art and share that art with the community and with tourists and visitors. It was an opportunity for the village to create and start to develop their own economy. It was a future for the children born at the clinic. I was convinced, and so were they. This was the next step. Together.
And that's where we are with our theater company now. Our next trip is planned for June 3rd, which is 2.5 weeks from today. We will be there for the opening of the medical center, the development of the arts and cultural center, a development of a village scholarship fund, and theater curriculum in the village schools. And that's the Humanity Project. Searching for stories that need to be told, creating a piece of art to help tell those stories, fundraising through presentations of that art, and then returning to fill the need addressed in those stories.
But what it's really about is unity. If Asha and I had not come together, if Rachel and I had not joined together, if our friends and family had not connected with the village of Mloka, all of us uniting together, none of this would be possible. And like right there, that's where the real humanity comes in, right? In that exchange, that back and forth, the giving, the receiving. There's simply no humanity without unity.
We set out to give this community, this village, a safe place for women to give birth, not expecting anything in return. But much to our surprise, what that same village, what that same community gave us was something much bigger, something much more powerful.
What they gave us was hope. Hope that there may be times, especially right now, where our shared humanity is hard to feel. When everywhere you turn, messages emphasize what divides us rather than what unites us. When our leaders try to separate us by building walls. When children are ripped from their mother's arms. When inhumanity is the daily news. This experience reminds us that unity is the more powerful force, that humanity is the cure for this country's disease, that no matter how hopeless we may feel sometimes in our own lives, our own daily struggles, there is indeed hope.
It's called ubinadamu.
It's called humanity.
Thank you.